at 6 p.m. The ReidOut is next.
Good evening. I'm Jason Johnson. I'm in for Joy Reid today. President-elect Joe Biden offered a sobering pre-Christmas message that was striking not just for its content, but for presenting a complete 180 from what we've been forced to endure from President Donald Trump these last 4 years. A message that showed empathy and offered a brutally honest, emphasis on the word honest, warning on the dark and deadly winter ahead.
Our darkest days in the battle against COVID are ahead of us, not behind us. So we need to prepare ourselves to steel our spines. As frustrating it is to hear, it's going to take patience, persistence, and determination to beat this virus.
We also heard a president-elect who will not treat the Department of Justice like his own private law firm.
The Attorney General of the United States of America is not the president's lawyer. I will appoint someone who I expect to enforce the law as the law is written, not guided by me.
A president-elect who is turning to experts and not science deniers to advise on public health decisions. And last, we heard the next president deliver a fiery rebuke of Trump's silence over the suspected Russian hack of the U.S. government.
This assault happened on Donald Trump's watch when he wasn't watching. It's still his responsibility as president to defend American interests for the next 4 weeks. But rest assured that even if he does not take it seriously, I will.
Meanwhile, Trump has abandoned every aspect of his presidential duty, waging war on science, election math, and, reality. His grand finale rages on in the White House with January 6th looming in his mind. That's the day Congress meets to formally count the electoral votes and announce the winner, Joe Biden. According to Axios, Trump would view Vice President Pence performing this constitutional duty as the ultimate betrayal. And yet, each day, the nation leaves Trump behind. With Governor Gavin Newsom today appointing California Secretary of State Alex Padilla to fill Vice President-elect Kamala Harris's Senate seat. Joining me now is Aaron Haynes, editor-at-large for the 19th, Michelle Goldberg, columnist for the New York Times, and Jennifer Horn, co-founder of the Lincoln Project and former New Hampshire Republican chair. Jennifer announced last week that she is leaving the Republican Party. Jennifer, I'm going to start with you because I think you, having left the Republican Party, you are closest to what we are still seeing as some of the madness on the part of the Republican Party. What are Republicans still thinking now when they see a president who's threatening members of his own party for simply acknowledging that in 30 days he's not going to have his job anymore?
Right. Well, what we should really care about is not that the president's continuing to do this, but that the leaders of the party who have won their elections, who are going to be continuing in the party in the months and years ahead, that they're continuing to embrace this idea that that this was a rigged election. Like so many other Republicans out there, whether they've left the party like I have or not, I've reached a point where the most important issue for me is preserving democracy, is preserving constitutional leadership in this country. And every time Mitch McConnell or Mike Pence or Marco Rubio or Tim Scott or any other Republican in Washington continues to embrace the president's conspiracy theories, continues to protect him in the damaging insanity that he is inflicting on us, they are personally responsible for the damaging consequences of that.
Michelle, I want to follow up with this. We're talking about the damaging consequences of what's been happening because of this administration. We've had presidents that we thought were asleep at the wheel, but we've got something else entirely going on with Donald Trump. He basically has stopped doing his job. From your reporting, who's running the ship right now? Because if Donald Trump is spending all of his time on Twitter and golfing, there's still a country to run for another 30 days before Joe Biden moves in, right?
Well, I mean, it seems like, you have various bureaucracies that are, sort of chugging along with no real leadership. And so, you have a lot of professionals in the government. It's why things like the distribution of the vaccine keep happening, even though the president is completely checked out or is really only interested in this point at subverting democracy and trying to overthrow a lawful election.
And so I'm also wondering, and I'll take this to you, Aaron, now that we have the president of the United States, he's in ranting mode. Joe Biden is preparing to step into office. Biden today said, hey, look, everybody who's out there suffering isn't just a Democrat. There are Republicans out there suffering as well. And I think that's going to end up making a difference and getting sort of bipartisan movement going forward. Do you think this was sort of wishful thinking during his talk today? Or does Joe Biden know something that none of us know right now?
Well, hi there, Jason. And aren't you looking festive with your holiday red? I guess I should have gotten the memo everybody else has on their red tonight but me.
I got Frosty in my pocket. He's hidden.
Joe Biden is somebody who, ran a campaign saying that he plans to be the president for everybody, not just the Americans that voted for him, and that he wants to, heal and unite the country. And the country is enduring this pandemic, whether they are Democrat, Republican, independent, or otherwise. What he is thinking, it sounds like, is that public opinion is going to go a long way to influencing potentially Republican lawmakers. He's saying that he expects their constituents to also be contacting them about the realities of the pandemic in their lives and their expectation that the people that elected them will govern on their behalf as well. But I think that we're continuing to see Joe Biden kind of, touting this message that he plans to govern with everybody in mind, particularly as it pertains to the pandemic, which obviously is his top priority as he prepares to take office.
Michelle, earlier today when President-elect Joe Biden spoke, he said, someone asked him, hey, are you going to get a honeymoon period? And that's this sort of mythical time where a new president comes in and supposedly people are nice to them and everything else like that. And Biden said, look, we're not on a honeymoon. We have a nightmare. Is that reflective of what the challenges are that he's facing? Or is it just Joe Biden sort of saying, hey, look, I know that, saying a honeymoon is sort of silly when you've got 321,000 people who've died. Is he ready for this fight? Or is he just hoping for something?
Well, I think he's ready for it in that he's clear-eyed about what he's walking into, right? And that he's clear-eyed in that he's not going to get a honeymoon period, certainly from Republicans who will only acknowledge under duress that he actually won the election. And he's not going to get a honeymoon period to do anything except sort of walk into the buzzsaw of this crisis. And we'll find out soon with the results of the two Georgia Senate elections, whether he'll even be able to govern at all, given what we've seen in the past of the, kind of utter nihilism of congressional Republicans and their willingness to kind of sacrifice the country if it means they can derail a Democratic president. And it's also the exact opposite of what we hear from Donald Trump, right? Donald Trump has been, lying to the country, affecting this kind of hyper-optimistic salesman persona, telling us that the coronavirus is going to disappear any day now. Joe Biden was elected because he's the polar opposite of that, and that's what he's showing.
Yeah, and the hope is that Joe Biden's sort of conciliatory attitude will actually end up making a difference. Or maybe it's already melted some of the ice in the Republican Party. Jennifer, I want you to listen to this segment from Pat Robertson talking about what he thinks Trump needs to be doing right now with the results of the election sort of rolling in state by state.
With all his talent and the ability to raise money and draw large crowds, the president still lives in an alternate reality. He really does. He's done a marvelous job for the economy, but at the same time, he is very erratic, and he's fired people, and he's fought people, and he's insulted people, and it keeps going down the line. It would be well to say, you've had your day, and it's time to move on.
Jennifer, Has Donald Trump lost Pat Robertson? Has he lost the moral majority, or is this just Pat Robertson sort of accepting his losses and saying, "Hey, look, I'm gonna now associate myself with Tom Cotton or somebody else"?
Excuse me. Yeah, I think Pat Robertson has a better understanding right now than the president of the United States does of what the future holds for him. Look, with all due respect, even to Pat Robertson, what everybody should be thinking, listening to, who everybody should be listening to is Joe Biden. And those really wonderful remarks that he made early today, calling for unity, expressing compassion and healing and understanding and trying to shallow out some of the divide that this president has caused in so many of our communities. With all due respect to Pat Robertson, it's a little too little too late from him or anybody else who considers themselves the moral majority when it comes to recognizing the destruction of Donald Trump and the need for our country to move beyond that.
Speaking of majorities, Aaron, I want to ask you about the decision that just came from Governor Gavin Newsom in California. He selected Alex Padilla, current Secretary of State, to take the position of senator from California, since Kamala Harris will soon be Vice President of the United States. You write for the 19th. It's the intersection of women in politics. Clearly, there was a tremendous effort, certainly a sort of public effort, for the governor of California to pick another black woman. Do you think that this was just sort of Governor Newsom thinking about his own political future in California? And how do you think black women politicians who've been fighting to keep that seat in the hands of a black woman are going to feel about this?
Well, Jason, it really just puts black women between a rock and a hard place, because the reality is, we shouldn't really be talking about one Senate seat for one black woman out of 100 senators in this country. And that's something that Senator Kamala Harris told me in our interview back in August, soon after she was nominated. And we knew that there was a potential for this very outcome. And so, the fact that her becoming vice president means that there are no black women in the Senate is really the question that we should be asking why that is, as opposed to why black women's representation in the United States Senate comes down to, whoever a governor could possibly be appointing to that position in any given state, right? Especially when we know that black women, as I have written about extensively for the 19th, are the backbone of this democracy. And so, and it's certainly the Democratic Party. And so to not see them reflected in the upper chamber is really, it's something that should not be coming down to appointments. But that is where we find ourselves because Kamala Harris is currently the lone black woman in the Senate, and when she departs, there will be none.
And Michelle, when she departs, she will be leaving not only a huge gap sort of representationally in the Senate, but she'll also be sort of speaking to a sea change in politics. We've got an administration right now where, look, Joe Biden is putting new people together. He's taking things into consideration. Are we going to see a president who's saying, look, I need to make sure just because I happen to have a black woman as vice president, it doesn't mean that I can't be more diverse in my selections? Are we going to see the president perhaps push to have, a minority person in the Secretary of Labor or AG? Or do you think that Joe Biden is going to continue to sort of pick his friends in these new positions that he's filling in his administration?
Well, it looks like the finalist candidates, at least the people who've been most publicly discussed for AG, are, two white men. Joe Biden has assembled the most diverse cabinet in American history.
So do I break in now?
Unfortunately, what's that?
Okay, sorry, everyone. We have to jump to some breaking news. We have breaking news. Donald Trump has just issued a slew of pardons, including allies like Duncan Hunter, a former congressman from California, Chris Collins, a former congressman from New York, George Papadopoulos, his former foreign policy advisor, and Alexander Van der Zwaan. Seems very clear that the president has rolled out these pardons as part of what he has been saying that he was going to do for quite a while politically. We don't know at this point if there's going to be any sort of pushback or what the consequences could be. And quite frankly, we have no reason to believe that these are the only pardons that President Trump is going to roll out in these coming days. Our hope is that going forward, we'll have some sort of assessment. And I want to take this back to the team. Now that we've heard about these brand new pardons that Donald Trump has just brought out. Now he's saying, hey, look, I'm going to take care of all my friends. Look, I'll start with you, Jennifer. Do you believe that this sort of thing actually is about loyalty, or is it about Trump just flexing his power?
Well, I think for Donald Trump, it's about both. But for our country, it puts us in a very dangerous position. We know that with Donald Trump, he starts small and goes bigger and bigger with everything he does that is an outrage. So if you look at these, and as bad as they are, and look at them as this is the first step or the first big rollout of pardons from the president, and he's still got a month to go before he's going to leave office, it should make the American people, justifiably concerned about what is the second round going to include. Who will be included in the third round? How dangerous how bad is this going to get? And we've seen this from him throughout this whole process since the election. He's ignored what's happened with Russia. He has given up leadership on the pandemic. Seeing him roll out this list of pardons, it just should be the people should be asking themselves, what's next?
So, Michelle, a lot of these people we've been hearing about throughout the Trump administration, basically these names kind of rolled out like the usual suspects with slightly less 90s clothing. But the fact of the matter is that it's a reflection of the differences that we saw with Joe Biden earlier today. Joe Biden's like, look, I'm not going to use the Justice Department. I'm not going to use pardons my own way. Do you think that after Trump has pardoned these people, is that going to increase Joe Biden's desire to say, hey, look, I'm going to stay away from the Justice Department? Or might he encourage his new AG to say, hey, look, even if these people have been pardoned, we still need to engage investigations of past behavior, of bad behavior in the Trump administration?
I don't think he's going to encourage his AG to do that. And he's already said that he won't encourage his AG to do that. But he's also said that if, his AG finds evidence of criminal behavior, that he won't stop them. And so I think it's very important for whoever is appointed as AG that they see some of these pardons really as admissions of guilt. I mean, one of the things that I think we'll find out soon, whether or not Donald Trump is going to issue some kind of blanket pardon of Rudy Giuliani. And there's right now, we know, an SDNY, or at least there's been reporting that there's this SDNY investigation into Rudy Giuliani. I think it's very, very important that whoever comes into that position not let Donald Trump's, kind of promiscuous flinging around of these get out of free cards be the final word on the corruption that we've endured over the last 4 years.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if we saw a slow drip, drip, drip of pardons coming out of this administration, which works for Rudy Giuliani. Thank you, Aaron Haynes, Michelle Goldberg, and Jennifer Horn. Up next on the ReidOut, Donald Trump washing his hands of the COVID calamity as the pandemic rages across the country. California weighs rationing life-saving care. All in Trump world, there are massless parties at Mar-a-Lago, complete with money cannons as if COVID never existed and 2,000 people were not dying every day. Plus, Georgia, the final frontier in the 2020 election cycle. And many of the big names from the Star Trek universe are helping Warnock and Ossoff in their very important political enterprise. Actor and activist George Takei joins me. Back with more of the ReidOut after this.